Hey everybody, I'm Harvey Media and I need a haircut, and welcome to Harvey Media Reviews. So back in the 90s, there was this little show called Batman the Animated Series. It was one of the greatest animated series of all time, and definitely one of the best adaptations of Batman of all time, and one of the best adaptations of DC comic books, or comic books in general, of all time. Ever. The series was so good that it not only adapted material straight from the comic books, but it also created new material that the comics adapted from the show, such as a brand new origin story for Mr. Freeze, and a little character known as Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was originally supposed to be the Joker's mole. Mole is a female henchman of a supervillain. The character became so wildly popular, they actually created this entire origin story and backstory for her that became really, really awesome. It was called Mad Love. It originally was created as a comic book in a tie-in comic to the show, which was then adapted into an episode of the show. So the Batman the Animated Series created the character, it was adapted into the comic book, and then the storyline that the comic book came up for her was adapted back into the show. So as Harley Quinn became more and more popular, they started coming up with more and more stuff for her to do in the show. In a couple episodes, they even had her break away from the Joker and start having her own adventures. For instance, in one instance, Harley Quinn ran off and decided to break out into her own crime career. And during that time, she found out she really sucked at it, and so she had to team up with another supervillain to try and make things work, and that supervillain was Poison Ivy. And the dynamic between Harley and Ivy in the episode, aptly titled Harley and Ivy, turned out to be so popular that they returned to it again and again and again and again and again. Harley became so popular that she got her own comic series, and in the New 52 universe, Harley Quinn's solo title is one of their biggest titles, and throughout all of the different solo comic series that Harley Quinn has had, she has always been teamed up with Poison Ivy at some point. Their dynamic is just that strong. Now, comic books are, or at least have always been, a bit of a boys' playground. This is not to say that there aren't women who enjoy comics, obviously that there are, and there are more and more women who enjoy comics now than there ever have been before. But for the most part, superhero comics in particular have been written by mostly boys for mostly boys. You get your exceptions like your Gail Simones and such, but mostly they've been written by boys for boys. And therefore, there have been a lot of sexual innuendo in the books directed at making little boys or older boys laugh or get horny. So, when you have two women who are considered very attractive, such as Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, teaming up, you tend to get a lot of humor about them being in a sexual relationship. Even that first episode in Batman the Animated Series, Harley and Ivy, there were several innuendos and lesbian jokes in the episode, implying that they were not just together, but together. Because it was the 90s, and 90s children's television was all about squeezing in these little innuendos and adult jokes into shows that were meant for kids, as opposed to modern-day animated series for children in which they would probably just yell, "They're lesbians!" and that would be the joke. So, recently, DC Comics tweeted to the DC Nation, the DC fanbase, confirming that officially, in DC Comics, the jokes that they've been telling in the comic series about Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn having lesbian sex are not jokes. Harley and Ivy, when you close the book and the adventure is over for that issue and their lives continue, are dating for real. They're in a relationship. They are having sex, seeing each other. Of course, this is fine, you might think, because if you have been following the Harley Quinn comics at all, she's been separated from the Joker for a long time. DC Comics decided to take the Joker in a more serious direction and separate him from some of the sillier elements of his universe, which includes Harley. So the Joker and Harley aren't together anymore. So you would think, okay, so she moves on to another relationship, which is Poison Ivy. My first thought when I heard this news was, that's remarkably progressive, DC. You haven't been very active in the progressive push for comic books. That's been a big thing that Marvel's been doing over here. Marvel has been very active about trying to make sure that its characters are progressive as possible, introducing new homosexual characters to their universe, introducing less white superheroes and more like minority heroes, more female superheroes, trying to switch things up a little bit, be a little bit more inclusive. And DC has been more interested in keeping things very, very safe, I think. That's been what people have been accusing them of anyway. So this is a big step forward, I thought. But I was wrong. And here's why. If you actually read the tweets that they put out, there are two very important things. One, they're talking about the jokes that they tell. Like, if like, Harley will be like, "You want to see my beaver?" And it'll be like a stuffed beaver. No, the jokes are referring to them actually having a sexual relationship. They're actually doing each other, but not on panel. And you might be thinking, what's your point? You want to see Harley and Ivy do each other on panel? No, of course not. That would be exploitative. I don't want to see that. What I would want to see is them as a couple. Like, if you're going to have them as a couple, you can't just say, "Oh, they're a couple" when you're not looking. That's kind of a really wimpy way to go about things, I think. It's not just that. It's they're not in a real relationship. They're dating, is how they put it, dating, but without the burden of monogamy. So they're in an open relationship. They're in an open relationship, which means that Harley and Ivy are doing each other, but they can also go off and do anybody else that they want to. I do not wish to offend anybody with this video. I know I'm touching on a lot of issues that may have nothing to do with me. Probably don't have anything to do with me. And there are a lot of people with very strong beliefs about these subjects who I do not wish to offend. There are some people who believe that open relationships can work, that you can be sleeping with someone and also sleep with other people, and that person shouldn't be offended or shouldn't be upset. I do not believe that, personally. I think that is a very dangerous situation to be in, both for other people and for yourself. But I'm not going to dispute that today. Because if that were the decision that Harley and Ivy had made as a couple, that they wanted to be in a relationship but also be in an open relationship, I really wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. And as I've pointed out, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with Harley and Ivy getting together in a relationship either. But it's not on panel. It is not a story. It's a fantasy. DC is saying, officially, according to continuity, whenever the lights are off, whenever the comic ends, Harley and Ivy are in bed together, if they're not in bed with somebody else. It's a sexual fantasy. This is not progressive. This is another just boy comic thing. This is someone saying, yeah, these two hot chicks are total lesbos for each other, but they're also open lesbos. They do each other, but then they could also go and do other guys, maybe even you. They might be up for a threesome. That's the kind of thing that we're in right now. Harley Quinn is a very versatile character. Harley Quinn can go in a variety of different ways. What DC Comics is doing right now, from what I understand, is that they're kind of trying to make her into the Deadpool of their universe. Deadpool's been a very popular anti-hero in Marvel for a very long time now, so they're trying to make Harley into that kind of thing for their universe, trying to make her really kind of a dark comic superhero almost. But on the other side of things, you can also go the Injustice route, where they've made her into a really tragic character. That was kind of the interpretation that Mad Love went with. Or you can go the route that Justice League Gods and Monsters went, where they turned her into a really scary psychopath who kills people. There's enough room in the character of Harley Quinn for all of these interpretations, and I think that all of them are perfectly valid, including Harley as a straight woman, Harley as a lesbian, or Harley as bisexual. All of these story possibilities have merit to them, in my opinion. I think you can go anywhere with this character. Almost anywhere. But that's the thing, they're not going in a direction with the character. I mean, there are lots of really difficult discussions going on right now about sexual identity and sexual dynamics. If this was a story where Harley and Ivy got together in an open relationship, what would that mean? That's really fascinating. So let's stop talking about Harley for a second. Let's talk about Ivy. Ivy is a really fascinating character. This person who essentially loves plants better than people. But in Harley's case, she's always kind of made the exception. Even before this even without the whole romance thing, Harley and Ivy's friendship throughout the comics history has been a really fascinating element of both of their characters. Again, Ivy does not like people, but she really likes Harley. Harley's influence on Ivy kind of makes her a better person, even though all they do is crime together. If you want to make this relationship happen, then go for it. Make this relationship happen. Harley and Ivy are lesbians now, in an open relationship. What does that mean? Why does that mean? Why did they decide to be in an open relationship? They mean a lot to each other. Are they afraid of commitment? Who's afraid of commitment? Is Poison Ivy afraid of commitment? But then again, Poison Ivy is also the kind of person who explodes into a jealous rage and tries to kill people. Harley is the forgiving, diminutive, abused girlfriend type. So she probably wouldn't want to kill Ivy even if she cheated on her. Or if she did, she probably wouldn't be able to go through with it. What is Harley's relationship history with the Joker impacting on this relationship? You can't see these are the kinds of questions that I really want answered, because I really want. That's what you don't understand, DC, about comic book fans. Yes, there are a lot of us who find Harley hot, and there are a lot of us who find Ivy hot, and there are a lot of us who think that lesbian sex is really, really hot. So thinking about Harley and Ivy having lesbian sex together, there's a good portion of the comic book fan population who thinks that is frickin' awesome and want to imagine that. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a sexual fantasy. Okay, people have those. Fine, they're fictional characters anyway. It's not like you're disrespecting them by thinking of them in that regard. But DC, all you're doing is fueling those shippers. They're not even shippers, they're just, perverts. But you're not doing anything with it. What's the point? What is the actual point of them being in a relationship if you're not going to do anything with it story-wise? They're friends with benefits. That's all that they are. They're not even, at that point, they're not even dating. Because if they were dating, there would be actual stuff about it in the comics. But there aren't. There aren't anything. There isn't anything. This is actually like a legitimately fascinating story that you could have told with this, DC, but you're not. You're not telling it. You had a very interesting lesbian story arc going on in the Batwoman comics. Before the New 52 happens, remember? Batwoman came out as a lesbian, which was fascinating, and then she went off and she got married. She got married to a woman. You had a strong lesbian relationship going on in one of your comics. It was sexy, sure, but it was strong. It was an actual relationship. It was an actual story. New 52 happens. We don't want lesbians to be in committed relationships because then it would make us feel weird to fantasize about having them sexually. As long as they're in an open relationship and they're just in it for the sex, then maybe they could have sex with us. That's what this is all about. It's not about story. It's not about being more inclusive. It's about getting your rocks off, thinking about having a threesome with Harley and Ivy and then being totally down with it because they were in an open relationship. But hey, let's say I'm wrong. Let's say this is really about DC being more inclusive. DC taking risks with the characters' stories. Really taking the characters in new directions. Okay, DC. Okay. Really being brave. I got an idea then. Why isn't Batman gay? Why isn't he gay? Harley and Ivy can be gay, Batwoman can be gay, but Batman can't be gay. Why not? Oh, Alan Scott can be gay. I mean, look at the costume, it's pretty obvious, but I mean, Alan Scott can be gay, but only in an alternate universe. In Earth 2, Alan Scott can be gay, but Batman can't be gay. Even though people have been saying that Batman was gay for ages, Batman can't be gay. Have him get together with Superman. Actually, that couple makes a lot more sense than the couple you have Superman with Wonder Woman. That doesn't make any sense at all. The only reason you're putting them together is because they can have sex. Superman and Wonder Woman can have sex without people snickering about, oh, well, his superpowers will rip her apart because they're both superpowered. And nearly every cover of the issue that's not drawn by Darwin Cook is about them in various states of undress having sex with each other. That's why they're together. It's not about the story, it's not about the relationship and how it works. The only reason that they're together is because they have superpowers so they can have sex, and because they're both outcasts. No, that's not interesting. Have Superman and Batman get together. After all, you're the ones who've been describing them as the world's finest couple since time immemorial. So what's stopping you, DC? Oh, because lesbians are hot, but gay men are gross? Fine. But these are characters that I care about. I want to hear good stories. That's why I got into comics in the first place. Some of my favorite stories are in these comics. So if you're going to tell stories with these characters, please tell stories with them. This is not a fetish book. The reason why Harley Quinn is popular is not because she's hot. It's because she's a fascinating character that we want to know more about. We want to hear more stories about this character. If you're going to take her in a direction like this, then take her in that direction. I want to see what happens. Maybe the Harley and Ivy relationship will be just as toxic as the relationship between Harley and the Joker. Or maybe it can heal her broken heart, her broken soul. Maybe together they can become stronger than the whole. Or maybe they'll become even worse. I want to see how the story ends. I'm Harvey Media, and I'll see you all later.
The ambiguously gay duo, they are taking on evil, come what may. They are fighting all crimes to save the day. They're extremely close in an ambiguous way. They're ambiguously gay. They're ambiguously gay. The ambiguously gay duo.
The ambiguously gay duo.
Well, hello.
I think I'm in love.
Auga, ooga.
Excuse me, boys. Didn't your mommies tell you that's not the nice way to get a lady's attention?
Oh, and what are you gonna do? Spank us?
That's right, pigs. And here's the paddle.
Wow!